Good day, everyone, and this is another edition of Reeves Reflection. I am Tony Reeves. Thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. So, I want to talk to you as a part of my new segments, Motivational Mondays, about how important it is for you to realize that you can survive the storm. Now, this is going to be corny because there's probably a lot of people who've heard this on a regular basis, this cliche that we know, it's from a Negro spiritual talks about he knows how much we can bear. We never really appreciate our ability to be able to withstand a storm. And I'm not talking about hurricanes or tornadoes or earthquakes or mudslides. I'm talking about when something devastating happens in your life and you have no field of reference for what to do to deal with that. And I can tell you, as someone who has gone through my fair share, if someone would have told me back then that I would have experienced these particular things, I wouldn't have believed them. Probably one of my best examples that I've shared is that I went through a period of time where my business hit an economic low. And because my business and running my law firm was basically just my wife and I and a couple of people that we had contracted, everything that we relied upon, everything flowed through the firm. So as a result, when we hit an economic lull, like a situation, and I'm being nice because people are like, what the hell does that mean? You weren't making no money? Yes. I hit a point where I wasn't making money. And so there was a situation where I knew money was going to be coming in. I had cases that I had won, but I was working at the time where my main client base was based on getting paid from the federal government as a result of winning cases. But there was during this time where there was an economic shutdown and all kind of crazy crap happened. So as a result, money that I expected to come in wasn't coming in as quickly. So I literally knew I had money coming. I just didn't know when it was going to hit. And I often tell people, even now, in this particular position that I'm in, that I said, the problem is when you're going through something, the bills just don't stop. Whether you want to acknowledge it or not, yes, it's unfortunate that you owe money. It's unfortunate that you're in a tough spot. But guess what? The light bill, the water bill, cable bill, the phone bill, mortgage, or car notes, none of those things stop just because you're having a difficult financial time. And more importantly, things that you need, like gas, things that you need, like groceries. They don't just say, hey, I want to get some groceries. Yeah, I'm going to get paid in about a couple months. Can you front me on that? No, player. So what ends up happening is that you find yourself in this situation. And in my case, I found myself in this situation and I didn't necessarily know what to do. Now, I'll be clear. One of my biggest things is that pride was a powerful thing during that time period. My pride kept me from asking for help, which a lot of times that's what ends up happening. But what I found when going through these moments is that the people who really, really had my back knew or could sense when something was going on. I was just talking about this to my best friend the other day, where we were talking about how you really, really know who is a part of your circle when your circle connects with you to make sure you're okay. And in my case, that's what happened. And so it was fascinating. Out of nowhere, I was in a situation where the light bill was coming up and I was trying to figure out how I was going to pay for it. And so my first thought was I was going to basically contact everybody else. I think it was like $200 was for the bill. So I felt like if I could get 4 people to give me $50, I could take care of paying the bill. I don't know why I wanted to do it like that, but I had convinced myself that asking one person for $200, they probably wouldn't give it, but they probably could give 50. And that's literally what I had planned on doing. And so I started with my first good friend, and it was funny. When I asked him for $50, he stopped me right there and then. And he said, how much do you actually need? I said, well, $50 is good. And he asked me again, how much do you actually need? I said, no, 50 is good. And he kept asking me, and I was like, why do you keep asking me that? He said, because in the years that we have been friends, you have never asked for money. So that means if you're asking for money, things are so bad that you feel like you have to ask for money. So we're going to go back and I'm going to ask you this question one more time. How much do you actually need? And I told him 200. And he just kind of paused and he said, why didn't you just ask for 200? I said, because I didn't think you would give 200. I don't think anybody on my ask is going to give me 200. So I just said, I'll ask for 50. And sure enough, he didn't send me 50. He sent me 400. I was so blown. I was like, what? What? You sent me too much. And his argument to me was, one, I understand where you're at, because fortunately for me, he had run his own business and he understood what it meant to be in a really tough financial position. And he was like, I understand what it means to be in a position where you are trying to make something happen and you don't want to ask for any help. And so this is my way of paying it forward. For the people who stepped up and helped me when I didn't want to ask, let me do the same for you. And it was fascinating because also during that same time period, my car broke down. We had a 2-car family, but both the cars were broke down. And it was fascinating because we were also running out of groceries. And so I was finding myself doing the old school thing of going into the house, putting change in a Ziploc bag, walking to the grocery store, and literally pouring the change in like one of those change bins that gives you money to pay for groceries. And again, didn't say anything to anybody until one of my other buddies contacted me. It was like, okay, I haven't heard from you in a while. What help do you need? And I was like, again, why do you think I'm needing help? Because again, you're not saying anything to anybody, which is telling me you're in the midst of something. And so I told him where I was at. And he asked me, how much do you need? And I said, well, I only need, he says, again, how much? And so I told him, maybe about $100. And he was like, when you know you're in the midst of a situation, you're not begging for assistance when you're letting the people in your life know that you're trying to make things happen. But your problem is you're waiting to the last minute to say something. But if you give them enough heads up to say, hey, listen, I got this coming down the pipe. I think I'm probably going to need some help in a couple of days, but just letting you know. And what he did by me telling him that, this is what he's telling me to tell him. He said it puts him in the position so that when he comes into money, he can say, hey, you were telling me that you need some help. Do you still need it, or are you good? And so when I did that, he shot me $100. And then later on, he came back and he says, are you good? And at that time, I'd gotten better. Several weeks had passed. Money was starting to come in. So why am I giving these different reflections to you for your benefit? Because a lot of times what happens when we are in the midst of a storm, we convince ourselves we have to go through that storm by ourselves. And it gets worse when we ask for help. Because asking for a one-off is one thing, but when you know it feels like you're perpetually asking, it feels like it's a slight on your pride. It feels like it's a slight on your capability. It feels like you can't do what you believe in your heart you can do already. So why is it important for you to recognize that you can weather these storms? Because guess what? If you take stock for a second and look back, you will realize that you have gone through so many things that you found ways to get through. The problem is that most of us look at it in the negative side. We're paranoid that by going through situations like that again, we clearly don't know what we're doing. When that's not the way you should look at it. The reality is whatever situation you're dealing with now is a new version, not like the old version. This is a completely new version. And the fact that you have been able to weather the storm is a testament and a compliment to your resilience. Never take away from the fact, never underestimate your ability to weather a storm. You are resilient. You are tough. And because you are, you should never underestimate your ability to weather the storm, regardless of what that storm may bring. All right, everyone. Thank you for tuning in. Again, my name is Tony Reeves. You can find me on most listening platforms, but most importantly, if you start with anthonyreeves.com, you can find everything you need there. This is another edition of Reeves Reflection, and as always, I end this with my favorite question of the day. Are you ready for the Anthony Reeves experience?